Okay, well I have 1:30 Eastern Time, so I believe we're going to go ahead and get started on the program. I want to first of all say I think it's a good afternoon to just about everyone else, but Mr. Mix is still a good morning to him. I want to welcome everyone to the Pro Football Hall of Fame here in Canton, Ohio. My name is Jerry Shockey. I oversee all the youth and educational programs here at the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and we're really excited to have you guys join in on this. This is the first one of the series that we'll be doing throughout the course of the year, probably 15 to 20 times throughout the course of the year, as part of our Heart of a Hall of Famer series. And I think for some of you, you are new to this series. The real idea and premise behind this series is really to convey exactly what it took to get in the Hall of Fame beyond just the athletic ability. We know our Hall of Famers are awesome examples of athleticism and talent and skill, but obviously it took a lot more than that to get enshrined into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. It took those 6 core pillars that you guys are studying: the trustworthiness, the respect, responsibility, the fairness, the caring, the citizenship, all those sorts of things and more to get enshrined into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And what you'll find is that, and Mr. Mix is a fine example of this, is that you'll find that our Hall of Famers have been as successful or even more successful off the field than they have on the field. And that's solely because of those character qualities, that ability to persevere and the willingness to, the leadership qualities and all those sorts of things that made them fine football players have carried true through other elements of their life. So this program today is designed to really give you guys an opportunity to ask Mr. Mix questions about obstacles he faced and advice that he has and things that he went through when he was a child, maybe in middle school, high school, college, maybe in the pros, those sorts of things. So we're extremely excited to get this kicking off for the school year, and we are excited that we have a whole team of folks that help make this program possible, and I would like to recognize those individuals. First and foremost, our host site there, San Diego Community College District. I know Cesar Gamapas and a number of other folks there that have helped make this, open the doors up to Mr. Mix and allowed us to utilize their studios, their video conferencing studios, to make this connection out to the school. So we thank you very much, San Diego Community College District there in San Diego, California. As always, we have to thank our good friends at Interisys Networks. I know Eric Rowe and Alan Hayase and Jonathan Kidwell and Tracy Hill help make this program possible, so we greatly appreciate that as well. eTech Ohio, our friends that are through our State Department of Education here down in Columbus, Ohio. They are the ones that are making sure we can connect all these sites together and we can all interact with each other. We obviously have to thank the teachers because you are the ones that have made the sacrifice and the arrangements, and I know it's the beginning of the year. Things are really hectic right now for you. You're just starting to get in the rhythm of the school year. So we appreciate you taking time out of your day to make these arrangements. But last but definitely not least, we have to recognize the real stars of the show, and those are the students. So if you would, when you get the opportunity, I'm going to recognize the schools that are participating. And after I recognize the school that's participating, you want to feel free to unmute your microphone and give a little shout out. Show a little school spirit, give a little shout. I apologize to all the schools, especially the one I see at Madisonville. I think you guys are in a library right now, so I apologize for allowing your students to scream in your library. But just bear with me just for a second. But first of all, we would like to go to New York, Cazenovia High School. If you want to unmute your microphones and say hello, give a shout out. And just so everybody's aware, Cazenovia is having some video issues, so they can see and hear us fine, but we will not be able to see and hear them. So it's probably just the image is going to stay on the prior group that's involved with that. So thank you, Cazenovia. I will ask you, Cazenovia, if you can get a little closer to your microphones or turn your volume level up. It's pretty quiet there. So let's go to Virginia, Spotsylvania Middle School. Okay, thank you, Spotsylvania. And then last but definitely not least, I see them on school. And also, Spotsylvania's they're having video issues as well, so they're going to be an audio-only connection. They cannot see or hear us, and we cannot see and hear them, but nonetheless, we can still have a good interaction. And last but definitely not least, let's go to Madisonville, Tennessee. Madisonville Middle School, if you want to give a shout out, go ahead. Okay, thank you very much, Madisonville. So we appreciate everyone's attendance and participation in today's program. So we're really excited to get things started here in just a moment. But before we get to your questions, I would like to ask for opening remarks from our Hall of Famer. But before we do that, I would like to introduce Mr. Ron Mix and give you some information about him. And what we like to do with our Hall of Famers is when we introduce them is kind of from two distinct areas, on the field and off the field. And Mr. Mix, we will do the same thing. And let's start on the field, first of all. He picked the AFL over the Colts, who drafted him number 1. He was all AFL tackle 8 times, once as a guard, and 8 AFL All-Stars, 5 AFL title games. Consistent, finely conditioned, intense with excellent speed and strength. Noted for a quick charge, accomplished blocking on both passing and running plays. Had only, now get this, had only 2 holding penalties in 10 years. Any of you play football there? Raise your hand. We can see Madisonville. Okay. All right. Can you imagine being on the offensive line and only having 2 holding calls in 10 years? That's amazing. And he was nicknamed the Intellectual Assassin, and you'll probably figure out why here in just a moment. He was born in Los Angeles, California, but one of the things that he was recognized for as well, and that we're quite proud of here in Canton, Ohio, is that in 1979 he was enshrined into the Pro Football Hall of Fame, which is really, for those of you that may or may not know, it's really the highest, it's kind of the pinnacle of success for an individual player to be enshrined into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. So that's a little bit about his on the field. Now let's get into some of his off the field. He attended law school at night while playing professional football. Did you guys hear that? Attended law school at night while playing professional football. So was already committed to practice law prior to his retirement in professional football. He practiced in the civil litigation field for 25 years, obtaining a peer-reviewed national rating of AV, which is the highest rating an attorney can attain for expertise and integrity. Current focus of his law practice is representing retired professional athletes and claims for workers' compensation benefits. He is past president of the Retired Players section of the NFL Players Association, the NFLPA. That's the union that represents the 1,500-plus players in the National Football League. He was the founder of the Pro Football Hall of Fame Players Association, an organization that soon morphed into a joint venture between the players, the NFL, and the Hall to produce products and events for the benefit of Hall members, including not just the Hall members, but including wives of deceased Hall of Famers who need financial assistance. Mr. Mix was one of 6 retired players selected by current commissioner, Mr. Roger Goodell, to assist in determining a formula for the distribution of the $620 million legacy fund that was devised to increase pension benefits for players who retired prior to 1993. He and his wife Patty support Freedom Dogs, an organization that provides trained dogs to injured war vets. His wife Patty is a trainer for those dogs. So as you guys can see, I gave a lot more info about his off the field. His off the field is even more amazing, his achievements, than his achievements on the field. So you guys have the opportunity to talk with someone who's done some great things both on the gridiron and off the gridiron. So with that being said, I'm going to turn things over to Mr. Mix. But before we do that, if we can all unmute our microphones for just a second and join me and give a warm round of applause and welcoming Pro Football Hall of Famer, Mr. Ron Mix. And Mr. Mix, the microphone is yours, sir.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. To my young friends in Virginia who apparently cannot see me, you're really missing something. I look like George Clooney wishes he looked like. That's right. My friends from Tennessee, is that true? Is it true? Am I telling the truth? Shout out. Okay, you're not. In any event, let's go back to that part of that introduction about the 2 holding penalties. It should have been no holding penalties. It wasn't that I knew how to hold. I absolutely didn't hold, and let me tell you why. I simply felt that you had to play within the rules, and that how could you take satisfaction in doing a good job if you had to cheat at it, and that has been kind of the guiding light of how I've conducted my life. I get a lot of attention for for only having had 2 holding penalties. Truly, they were bad calls by the referee. I'm sorry to do that to them right now, but I never did hold. Now, what I want to share with you is just some of the things that I have done in my life and how I've approached certain things. I found very early on that the most important thing is to be happy with yourself. And that means developing yourself to the full extent that you possibly can. The most unhappiest that I think you'll ever be is if you had something in your control that you could do and you failed to do it. Whether it's you didn't study hard enough on an exam, whether it's you just didn't do some job properly. If it was in your control and you didn't do it, you're going to be very unhappy with yourself. I found that hard work was just essential. In my role with the Pro Football Hall of Fame, having founded the Pro Football Hall of Fame Players Association, I attended every Hall of Fame induction ceremonies for many years in consecutive years. And in doing that, I spoke to a lot of the high school coaches and the college coaches of these hall members. And there was one thing that was a constant when they talked about the individual hall member that they had coached. And that is, they described that person as the hardest working person, athlete on the field that they ever had. That was the constant. That must tell you something. So you got to be true to yourself and work hard at what you're doing. I know that when I went to when I was in high school, I was really not a very good athlete. I was an energetic one, but I was not a good athlete. I developed slowly, I grew slowly. My senior year was the first year that I was a starter on the team. And then I was a starter only because the end ahead of me got injured. I was truly, of the 11 players on the team, I was the worst one. And but when the season ended, I told myself, I like this game, I'm going to keep working at it. And I planned to attend a local junior college for 2 years, and then my goal was to go to the University of California at Los Angeles. I've got this slight cough, so you'll forgive me, it's not contagious. But so something happened there. I started working out immediately as soon as the high school season was over. And I started lifting weights, I started running, I just did everything I could, all planning to go to the junior college. And that year, for the first time, there was an all-star game between the league that my high school was involved in and another league. And I was an end at that time, all of the good ends in our league were juniors, and I was a graduating senior. And so the coach of the all-star game was literally stuck with me, naming me to an all-star game. But by then, I had just kind of blossomed. All the hard work paid off. I was faster, I was bigger, I was stronger. This is going to sound immodest, but I was the best player at the all-star game. And after that one game, got a scholarship, football scholarship, to the University of Southern California. I was shocked. I couldn't believe it. The University of Southern California gave me a football scholarship. It was something beyond my dreams. But I told myself then, I'm going to prove to them that they made the right decision. And I decided that I was going to work out year-round, become the best possible player. I felt I owed them something. I felt I had to give full value to the University of Southern California for having faith in me and give me a very valuable education. I also told myself that I want to regulate my life so that everything I do is designed to become the best player I can be. And I promised myself, for instance, that during that entire 4 years at USC, I would not have any alcohol beverages. At that time, sweets were considered, candy and what have you, and soft drinks were considered bad for you as an athlete. I told myself for the entire 4 years I would not have any sweets of any kind. And I kept that promise, and I kept working out year round. And I must tell you, certainly I could have gone off that. I could have had candy. I could have had a beer now and then. It wouldn't have made any difference as long as I was working out. But every time I declined to do it, it reminded me of my goal. I owe this school something. I owe them to become a great player. And it paid off. I made All-American at USC, and as Jerry told you, I got into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Kind of worked out for all my high school teammates too. Now they go around saying about themselves, oh yeah, I could have played pro football. Ron Mix made it, and I was better than him. So it all worked out really fine. Now, one thing I did find out at the University of Southern California that was very important at that time, I found out that people are judged on their individual worth. Now, we've moved forward in time a great deal, and many of the things I'm talking about right now are not going to have that much significance to you. You won't have that much understanding of it because times have changed. But back then, it was times of great racial prejudice, great religious prejudice, and it directed at African Americans, directed at Jews. At USC, two co-captains of the team were myself and Willie Wood. And we were co-captains of the team at a time when neither of us could get in any fraternities at the University of Southern California because I'm Jewish and they barred Jews, and because Willie was black and they barred blacks. But here's the thing, our white Christian teammates, they recognized that we were the two best players on the team, that we had the best stuff to lead them, and they put aside any possible prejudices they had and just judge us as individuals. And that's something that's super important. That's something, by the way, that athletics has provided. I think if you were to try to select a single thing, a single entity, a single activity that has probably produced more understanding between races and religions, it would be athletics, because people come from every different background, socioeconomic background, racial background, geographical background. They come together on a team, and they all have a common goal, and that is to work hard and contribute. And they find out that people are basically the same. They got the same desires and wishes to make things better for themselves and their family. And that's one of the great things about athletics. Another thing I found out about myself, I was curious about the world and about the things that were going on in the world. And this served me because as Jerry told you, I went to law school at night. I wanted to expand my education. And there's just so many interesting things out there that take the time to, particularly you athletes who often get too focused on athletics. Look what's going on in the world. There's some fascinating things going on. But at any rate, let me stop right now and take any questions that you have.
Okay, what we're going to do is I'll go ahead and moderate this part, and we're going to go in the order of Cazenovia, Spotsylvania, and Madisonville, and we'll go 2 questions from each site, and so we'll go 2 from Cazenovia, 2 from Spotsylvania, 2 from Madisonville. A couple things that I will ask you guys. Number one is obviously please keep, as you're doing right now, keep your microphones muted till we call upon you to ask your questions. But even after you ask your question, if you can go ahead and mute your microphone in between your questions or after your second question, just so we can eliminate any background noise as Mr. Mix is giving his responses to those questions. And let me just preface this before we go to the questions as well, is that think about this. There have been over 20,000 players that have played in the National Football League since it started in 1920 here in Canton, Ohio. There are only 280 members of the Pro Football Hall of Fame. So when the individual that you are talking to is the best of the best. When you start thinking about players like you see behind me, Drew Brees, and you saw first week, and Adrian Peterson, and RG3, and Andrew Luck, and all these players, they aspire to be in Mr. Mix's shoes and be enshrined in the Hall of Fame. And I'd imagine that if they saw what he's accomplished off the field as well, that they would aspire to be in his shoes off the field too, as successful as he's been. So keep that in mind as you're asking questions, that you have the chance to ask someone that's achieved greatness on and off the field. Let's learn. I take notes. I've already got notes down here that I've been taking, because I learned from this as well. Being 35 years old, there's things that I learn on a daily basis, and so I don't take anything for granted. I'll take notes for this stuff as well. So with that being said, we're going to go to Casanova. If you want to go ahead with the first two questions, go ahead and ask your first one.
Okay, can you hear us, Jerry? Jerry, can you hear us?
Yeah, I'm hearing you loud and clear now. Yep.
Oh, great.
Oh, I'm seeing you guys too now.
Oh,
Hey, you're in a computer lab there. How are you?
Good.
It says that your firm primarily focuses on representing retired professional athletes in claims for workers' comp. What was the most interesting case?
Can you hear that, Jerry?
Yeah, I can hear the case. I can hear the question. I can't say that. Oh, let me think. Oh, the most interesting case I had. I can't give a client's name, but what we do, we file a claim for the disability that athletes have, according to having played professional football, for instance. Although we represent all sports, or athletes from all sports. The most interesting one was a player that at the time of his claim weighed 425 pounds. At the time he played, he weighed 325, and we were able to get the judge to give a decision that said that his diabetes was a result of playing professional football, and the reason was the questions and answers when I put him on the witness stand was, sir, what was your weight in college? He said 265. Then I said, did the team give you a reporting weight when you played professional football? Yes. What was that reporting weight? 325. So they asked you so being overweight was a requirement of your job. Is that correct? Yes, it was. So that was kind of a fascinating outcome, I thought.
Go ahead with the next one there, Casanova.
We wanted to know, Ron, what your proudest moment was. What are you most proud of through everything? Because you have such an impressive career on and off the field.
Oh, thank you. Well, aside from we have three daughters. I'm happy to say they all had a good work ethic and all got through college and are doing things that they want to do. Of course, that's the thing we're most proud of. But talking about athletics, I must admit the shallow side. Going into the Pro Football Hall of Fame, something individual, was just a great thrill, and it continues to be. It's just. We go back to the Hall of Fame, and I swear I cannot believe I'm in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Unbelievable, and I see people like you hear about it, Emmitt Smith and Jim Brown and Paul Warfield and on and on and on. And I think, wow, I'm among them. I still can't believe it, and I think part of the reason I can't believe it is because I came from, again, a modest success in high school, and so I appreciate so much more what eventually happened to me.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Casanova. If we can go ahead and make sure to have you guys mute there. We're going to go to Virginia. I think it'll be audio only, but Spotsylvania, if you want to go ahead with two questions, go ahead.
What made you want to play football?
I have no idea why I focused on football. I just enjoyed athletics, and and in football, even though I was not a particularly good athlete, I was even worse at the other sports that I tried. And so I focused on the one that I happened to be best at, and I just liked it. I liked the idea of being part of a team. I liked the idea of working out during the off season with your teammates and getting into great physical condition. I liked the anticipation of playing in games and the nervousness that comes from wanting to do well and not wanting to be embarrassed, the thrill that comes from having a victory. I just think all those things combined went into my focusing on football.
What was the best year in your Hall of Fame career?
I think the best year would have been 1963, and that's when the Chargers won the championship. And it's an odd thing. There are times in every athlete's career when everything goes perfect and he plays to the highest level he possibly can. But on this particular day, as a team, as a team, we all played to the highest level we possibly could, and we beat the Patriots. I think it was 53-10, and we were just explosive on offense, on defense, and it was just a thrill to play in a perfect game.
Okay, and Mr. Mix, if I can throw in a question before we go to Madisonville, Tennessee. One of the reoccurring themes that we seem to have with this series, with our Hall of Famers, is one of the important things is in order to achieve excellence and greatness, you have to surround yourselves with those people that have similar goals or aspirations of making people great, to an extent, whether it's teachers, coaches, or whatnot. Can you talk about some of those people that were in your life and who you surrounded yourself with? Because there's positive, there's peer pressure, obviously, but there's also good peer pressure too that can motivate you. So, can you share some stories about folks that were in your life?
Well, I think it's important that I acknowledge what an important role the coaches played, and both in high school and college and professional, and these people were caring people who attempted to motivate you to become the best player you possibly could be. And I think it was somewhat altruistic on their part. I don't think it was simply because they wanted good players to produce so their teams could win. Of course they wanted that. But I think they sincerely took satisfaction in seeing players develop and perform well. Then, of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't just talk about the school teachers I had in other subjects. I mean, they were inspirational. They got me interested in things outside of athletics, which was fascinating. I remember in college I took a course in astronomy, and suddenly saw that our little world wasn't everything, that we were part of a galaxy with hundreds of billions of stars and other planets, and suddenly I became very curious about a lot of different things. So all those things were an influence. And then very important, I think, is surrounding yourself with friends who share the same goals. Those people become your good friends. I know one of my proudest moments, when I went to the University of Southern California, 3 of us made All-American, myself and 2 great football players, Marlon and Mike Mckeever. They were twins. And Marlon went on to have a 14-year career in the NFL. And Marlon and I did not really stay in contact with each other after we left USC. We saw each other now and then at a sports event. But when Marlon was inducted into the University of Southern California Hall of Fame, he asked me to be his presenter. And I was shocked that he'd asked me, and I was just thrilled, because that told me that when we were at USC together, he had as much admiration for what I did on the field and off the field as I did for him.
Thank you very much. And we're going to head to Madisonville, Tennessee. If you guys have a couple of questions, go ahead.
Out of the 6 pillars of character trustworthiness, respect, responsibility, fairness, caring, and citizenship, which do you believe helped the most in your career as both a football player and a lawyer?
Oh, that's an excellent question. I think you'd probably take maybe 3 of them together, and that's trustworthiness, respect, and responsibility. Like you group them together, and because you want to be a person that people can depend on. I think it finally comes down to that. Can they depend on you? If somebody gives you an assignment, can they depend on you doing it? If your parents give you some chore to do, can they depend on you getting it done? When you become an employee somewhere, can your employer depend on you? Do they think you're responsible? Do they have respect for what you get done? Are you trustworthy? Because that would mean that you would advance in that company. And maybe you go beyond being an employee. You become a supervisor. You become an owner. And you just need the respect of the people who work around you. Next question.
You spoke about teachers and coaches in general that influenced you. Was there an adult in your life that helped shape your character as a youth?
Hunt, can I ask you to read that again? I didn't hear it.
You spoke about teachers and coaches in general that influenced you. Was there an adult in your life that helped shape your character as a youth?
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I'd have to think it was my mother. Early on, she was a first generation Russian Jewish lady. Her parents came from Russia. At that time in Russian history, Russia didn't allow Jews to go to school beyond the 8th grade. It didn't allow them to own land. And so there was a big migration to the United States where they could have freedom. But things weren't easy in the United States. And so it was my grandmother and her 5 children were left alone in the United States. All the children had to stop their education in the 5th grade and go out and get a job to try to earn money for the family. And so there was my mother with a 5th grade education, just doing the best she possibly could. My mother and father were divorced when I was young, and she just the best she could to work and raise my brother and I. And she just sacrificed everything she could. And we saw how hard she worked. We saw how caring she was. We saw how responsible she was. She was, her first duty she felt was as a parent. But all the time, because of her experience of not getting an education, she stressed to us that you must go to college. You must take advantage of America.
Great questions there in Madisonville, so thank you very much. We're going to go back to Casanova. We'll go one from each school, and we'll rotate around through as many times as we can. So back to New York.
What did you miss most about playing football?
I think I missed getting Drew Brees' salary. What is he making now, Jerry? About $25 million a year? You know what? Every once in a while, I just get, when I go to a game, I get the urge wishing I was on the field again and participating in just the excitement. But basically, I can say I really don't miss it. I mean, you just move on, and just you go on to the next phase of life, and there's the same challenges that existed in football. It's very competitive being an attorney. You have to work hard, and you have to be responsible, and you have to have the respect of others. I think Jerry told you that as an attorney, I was given what's called a peer. That means your fellow attorneys rate you a peer rating of AV, which is the highest you can get for expertise and integrity, and so it's the same thing.
Great question there, Casanova. Let's go to Virginia, Spotsylvania.
Why did you move around so much?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
Why did you move around so much?
I think the question is, why did I move around so much? I didn't move around that much. I was with two teams, the San Diego Chargers and the Oakland Raiders. So that's just two teams. And not by my choice. After the Chargers traded me to the Oakland Raiders, the Raiders made an attractive offer. I was already an attorney at that time. I had passed the bar, but I hadn't started really practicing. And I simply decided that it'd be fun to play another couple years.
And thank you very much, Spotsylvania. And going along with the two teams you played in the AFL, which for the youth out there, the AFL and the NFL actually rivaled against each other until 1970, until they finally merged, and what we know as the AFC and NFC. But something that Mr. Mix was a part of, as a part of that AFL, was a boycott back in the early 60s. And, shared a little bit about, kind of the same type of thing at USC when he was voted captain, but him and his roommate couldn't join a fraternity because of their race or nationalities. But there's something else he was involved with as well, a boycott that happened in the AFL. Can you share with them a little bit about that? Because there's some important life lessons in that as well.
Yeah, I forget exactly what year it was, maybe 65 or 66, but the All-Star game was in New Orleans, and we learned that many of our black players could not get New Orleans was a segregated city at that time, meaning that blacks couldn't attend schools where whites were. Blacks were barred from certain restaurants, and blacks couldn't stay in certain hotels. I mean, that sounds crazy to young kids now, but that's the way things were. And so as a result of our black players couldn't get cabs, they were turned away from restaurants. In one case, they were turned away by an actual gun. So the black players decided to boycott the game. They decided not to play in it. Without going into a whole lot of background about it, I joined that meeting and told the black players that I would join them in the boycott. And so the game was moved to Houston, and that's where the game was played. But an interesting thing is that movement, the boycotting of that game and that stand taken by our black players, caused the city to desegregate, because New Orleans wanted to get an NFL franchise, and they knew now they were not going to get it as long as they were a segregated city. And so within the next year, they voted to desegregate the city.
And it had only been a year after that the city was awarded a franchise then too. The Saints actually awarded on All Saints Day. I don't know if anybody ever knew that. It was they were awarded on November 1st, All Saints Day. But useless knowledge from Jerry Shockey. But anyhow, let's go to Madisonville, Tennessee. If you have a question, go ahead.
What advice can you give young people about overcoming adversity and building character?
Young man, would you read that again? I'm sorry, I didn't hear it.
What advice can you give young people about overcoming adversity and building character?
Oh, that's an excellent question. Well, it's very difficult to overcome adversity because it comes in so many different forms. Some may not be as gifted students as others. It may not be their problem. It may not be their fault, but they may have to simply work harder. Some may have some physical or mental disabilities, and that's very, very tough. And hopefully those that do have mental or physical disabilities are surrounded by caring people, and hopefully you young people are kind to them and understanding. All you can really do when you face adversity is if you have the opportunity, if there's an adult you can talk to about the problem, you should. If there's a teacher, you should go to that teacher, because they can give you a lot of values in life lessons. So seek some help. Don't try to do it all by yourself. Don't even try to do it by yourself. Seek some help from a teacher. Seek some help from a parent or a relative.
Another great question there, Madisonville. Let's go back to New York, Casanova. Casanova? There we go.
Sorry, we were wondering, Ron, if you hadn't gotten the opportunity to go to USC, where do you think your path would have taken you? Was there another school you were looking at, another college you would have considered?
Yes, I had decided that I was going to go to a junior college. It's called El Camino Junior College in Southern California. My plan was to go there for 2 years, keep working out, trying to become a better football player, and then go to the University of California, UCLA, for the next 2 years and try out for that football team. And if that didn't work, the plan was to get a higher education no matter what, whether I played football or not. The goal was to graduate from college. And let me tell you that, quickly say that I'm not saying that college is for everyone. It isn't necessarily. There are a lot of good trade schools for people who are more mechanically inclined and don't feel like going to college. But you should develop a better skill set in some field. And there's a lot of good trade schools. There's a lot of good community colleges that can give you enough education to be able to have a productive adult life.
Thank you very much, Casanova. And Mr. Mix, if I can interject another question here. You talked about college. What were some, in college and pro, and you see it today as well, pitfalls that people fall into? What are some common pitfalls that people fall into, and how did you avoid those and those pitfalls that seem to engulf the student athlete and those in the pro as well?
Well, the major pitfall in college is, candidly, the colleges take up so much of the athlete's time that it is difficult to concentrate and get a really good education. Frankly, it's difficult, and an additional pitfall is to get so wrapped up in thinking about your college football career or basketball career in college, whatever it is, that you don't give proper attention to education. And I confess I did not do as well in college as I could have or should have, and I regretted it. I left there thinking, wow, I could have done so much better academically, and so that's why, as a pro, I decided to go to law school at night, because I thought I'd missed the opportunity to get a great education, and that's a common pitfall. As a pro, the common pitfall is, frankly, hanging on to whatever money that you make. Most athletes come from poor backgrounds. There's no business sophistication in the family. There's no sophistication in the circle of friends. They've known poverty, so they're overly generous with their money, with family and friends, and they have a tendency to lose their money and spend too much. And that's unfortunately, that is a major pitfall. And even though the Players Associations try very hard to keep the guys educated and cautioned them, it's still a major pitfall.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mixon. Let's go to Virginia, Spotsylvania.
What were your interests as a student besides football?
Well, as a student, I was interested in writing. I took a lot of writing courses at the University of Southern California, short story writing, play writing, advanced English classes in writing, and I really wanted to be a writer more than a football player. And in fact, during one off season, before I entered law school, one off season, I decided to try to write a book, because we have 6 months off during the season. And I found out, sadly, I didn't have much to say. And so I decided, you're not really a particularly good writer. It's time to go to law school.
Thank you very much, Spotsylvania. And Madisonville, let's go to Tennessee.
What character qualities do you believe it takes to be a Hall of Fame player?
I think the main character qualities that it takes is, like I mentioned before, one, you have to have decided that if you're doing something, it's worth doing well. And so commit yourself to working very hard at it. And that is the main thing about the Hall of Fame players, as I indicated in an example. They work hard at what they do. And that means not only working hard on the practice field, working hard in the off season, but also regulating their life to become the best players they can be, not get involved with excessive alcohol, for instance, or other bad habits.
Okay, thank you, Madisonville. And Mr. Mix, what advice can you give students? Because, looking at your career, you've achieved the pinnacle of success in multiple areas, whether it's on the gridiron, being enshrined in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, whether it's the AV rating that you receive from your peers. I mean, you've achieved, pretty much the pinnacle of success in your two chosen fields. Not everyone does that. I mean, not everyone gets an A on the test. Not everyone goes to play varsity football or tennis or whatever sport it is. Not everyone, even though they try as hard as maybe you did or as another student did, they don't achieve that particular success. What can you say to them about that?
Well, don't beat yourself up over it. The important thing really is the effort. I mean, that is the important thing. The important thing is that you give something effort. And by giving effort, you will have achieved at a much higher level than you would have, even if you don't become the star in the class, the star on your high school team, the star on your college team, the valedictorian of your college or your high school. It's just important that you be happy with yourself. And I think to be happy with yourself, you have to believe that you did the best that you could do. And I think that's the important thing. Don't beat yourself up because you don't achieve something as high as somebody else. Just know that you did well within your own capacity.
Okay, and I see we got about 10 minutes left, so we should be able to get through another round of questions, I think, here. Let's go to back to New York, Casanova.
So you talked about how you went through racial and religious discrimination back then. Was there any other time that you had to face that, and how did that affect you to make you the person you are today?
Well, I think that's an excellent question. I think it very candidly. I think it was probably a motivating factor for me to try to become good, because back then there was such prejudice against Jews and blacks that the general feeling by a lot of the white population was that we were not as good as them. And so it's a super motivating factor to try to prove them wrong. And I got a feeling that as I think about it, that had I not been Jewish, for instance, I'm not sure I would have accomplished what I did. I probably wouldn't have had the chip on my shoulder. I probably wouldn't have been motivated to prove that I was as good as anybody else. Now, that's an interesting question. I've never given that much thought, but that's what I think now.
Yeah, great question. Thank you very much for that question. Let's go to Virginia, and we'll ask Casanova if you want to go ahead and mute there. Spotsylvania?
Mr. Mix, what is your life's motto?
Oh, I would have to think it's to try to contribute to the common good. I mean, I think that we've got to take an individual responsibility, not just to be good to ourselves, but also be good to others. I mean, it's a tough, nasty world out there, and I think we've all got to contribute to try to make this world a better place.
Thank you very much, Spotsylvania. Let's go to Madisonville.
What character qualities do you believe it takes to be successful in school?
Oh, I think to be successful in school, it's one. Let's go back to that concept of working hard, paying attention. I think you have to stay focused. Don't let yourself get distracted. Don't let yourself. There's a thing called peer pressure, and that means what your fellow students are doing. And maybe your fellow students don't think it's cool to be a good student. Well, you have to fight that peer pressure. If you want to be a good student, then you have to work at it. And so I think you pay attention to what's going on. You appreciate, you understand that you really have to have a good education in order to, when you're an adult, have a good job. And I know it's difficult to think way off in the future like that, but it's important that you do. And also, I think it's important that when you have any kind of problems at all, talk to your teachers, talk to the school counselors. They're trained to help you. There are people in your school right now that can give you the guidance that you need if you have any type of problems, whether it's problems in class or any other type of problems.
And I think that's so important that you bring that up, Mr. Mix, because in athletics, we have problems in athletics. Let's say we're a basketball player and we're only shooting 60% from the free throw line, and we want to work on our free throws. We have no problem going to our coach saying, hey, I'm struggling here. Let's shoot free throws, and they'll shoot 100, 200, after practice to continue to get better. But as students, for some reason, if we're struggling in a class or something to that nature, we're hesitant to raise our hand in class, or we're hesitant to approach our teacher because for some reason, even though we're willing to accept help in the basketball field, but in the classroom, for whatever reason, we're not willing to seek that help. And that's I think that's so important for us to I wouldn't have gotten where I have gotten if it wasn't for seeking help, and I'm sure Mr. Mix can share the same things as well. Can you talk a little bit about that? I mean, I know you already did a little bit, but can you add anything to that?
Well, no, I think you said it very well. I think if students are having any type of problems, they can just after class is over, just quietly go up to the. You don't have to let anybody else in the class know. Just quietly go up to the teacher and say, "I'd like to talk to you," and then talk to the teacher about what kind of problems you're having. I'd like to talk to you. I'd like to get some help. I mean, they may be able, for instance, you're having trouble in class. In a particular subject, they may be able to put you in touch with special tutors. Don't be embarrassed in getting tutors. I mean, the tutors are there to help you understand something better. So the schools you have tremendous resources there to help you, and so access them.
Yep, and I guarantee you, students, if a question that you have or a problem that you're having in a class, if you're sitting there with 30 students, I can almost guarantee you there's at least 5 other people in that classroom, probably more. There's at least 5 other people that had that same question or are having the same types of problems that you are in that class. I can guarantee you that. But let's go to Casanova. I think we got time for 1 or 2 more questions. Casanova?
Ron, you mentioned that it's sad how a lot of the players in the NFL can't manage their money. Is there and a lot of the kids today are taking personal and business finance courses in high school. Can you just stress again to everyone how important it is to take that money management course, especially these NFL players and what we see going on today? I just want everybody to know how important it is for financial literacy.
Well, it's absolutely important, and one of the things I'm very surprised about and disappointed is that the general education courses do not include a life skills course. It should be a separate class beginning at maybe the 8th grade, repeated again in high school, just to give people a general understanding of how you manage your money once you become an adult. Just basic things. I think it's super understanding because people go out into the adult world that don't have any idea how you get a loan to buy a home, that you have any idea that you have to pay your bills on time, have any idea that you shouldn't run up vast amounts on a credit card, have any idea of living within your means, meaning not spending more than you make. I mean, it's critically important to take such classes, and your school is to be commended because, frankly, not many schools have that kind of class.
Thank you.
And
We're
I think
sitting in
that's-
a counting class.
Oh,
Okay.
let me just tell you one other thing. Another reason why it's so important is a very high divorce rate in the nation. There's families just being destructed by divorce, and the number one reason why there are divorces in the nation are because of financial problems, meaning they have not managed their money properly.
Yeah. Thank you.
And one thing
Welcome.
the teacher would like to know there as well is that the NFL, about I think it was the early '90s, they started this player development office in the NFL, and then all the teams have their own player development staff as well. Usually 1, 2, 3. Usually they're former players in many cases with many of the NFL teams. That their job is to help the athletes with that with those situations as they come into the NFL. How to deal with media pressure, how to balance, how to pay bills. I mean, a lot of these guys all of a sudden get thrown millions of dollars and they've never paid a bill in their life. How to seek further education. So money management is obviously something that I think the NFL and the NFL Players Association as well both try to as best they can to help be a resource for these athletes. So I know we've gone across the board. I see we're getting at the end of the program. Through all this, Mr. Mix, I know you've shared a lot of different things, and one of the things that really stood out for me was on top of your good looks and being George Clooney-like. Aside from that, is I just found it fascinating that you stated you didn't do as well as you thought you could. You didn't do that well at USC as well as you thought you could. So here's someone that went on to become a lawyer and become one of the best lawyers in the country, who maybe didn't do so well in a certain point of their life. So that's important, I think, for students to recognize that you can start now, this day. You can say, I'm going to make a commitment to be excellent. It doesn't matter what you've done back here. Maybe you decided to take a year off in school or whatever. Not really focus yourself or on athletics or whatever. From here on out, you can make that change. So that's one of the fascinating things that I found with Mr. Mix. But out of all those things that you've discussed, is there anything you'd like to reiterate with them, or maybe something you didn't touch on that you'd like to share with them as we close the program?
Well, I just think that I think it's just important that you're kind to other students, and that you take the time to make friends with students outside your group. Too often athletes just stick with the athletes, what have you. And growing up is tough. There's probably nothing more than a kid wants than just to be liked by others. And so take the time to get to know, extend yourself to the kids that that don't seem as popular. Extend yourself to the kids who may be overweight. Extend yourself to the kids who may have a physical or mental disability. Extend yourself to the kid who may be a gay kid. Extend yourself. Try to make their life easier. Bring some joy into the lives of others. You'll be so happy that you did.
And students, if you could all unmute your microphones and join me in saying thank you and give a warm round of applause to Pro Football Hall of Famer, Mr. Ron Mix.
Thank you all. Thank you. Thank you.
And Mr. Mix, on behalf of the Hall of Fame, our executive staff here, you know very well, thank you for taking time out. I know you're very busy schedule to take time to share your message with the students. We need to thank San Diego Community College District, Caesar and the folks there. Thank you very much. And Terraces, E-Tech, Ohio, and then all of our schools, Cazenovia, Spotsylvania, Madisonville. Thank you very much. We hope to see you in Canton, Ohio someday. But until then, take care, and this concludes our program. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jerry. Thank you, schools.
Thank you, Ron.